Hey, what's going on? So today I'm going to make a video on dealing with both legal and illegal landlords in Hobart. Now, I'm not too sure how this works in other states. All the laws are different. But a lot of my friends, especially my international friends, they don't know a lot about the laws in Hobart, and they come across very, very sketchy landlords. And these sketchy landlords like to take advantage of the fact that they don't know the laws and they don't know what to do when something bad happens, because usually a lot of the Chinese people in Hobart, when they have illegal landlord problems, they think to go to the police. But the truth is, police can't do really a lot in this situation unless they have a court order. Now, before we start, a disclaimer: I'm not a lawyer. I don't I don't work in laws at all. I have worked in real estate, and part of my training was to read the Tenancy Act as well as rental laws and that sort of stuff. So I'm very well aware of the rental laws, but don't quote me in any circumstance. I'm just a friend giving advice to another friend. Now that that's out of the way, so let's talk about some common problems that I find, not just with like Chinese people in Hobart, but also local people. But because like these videos are more targeted towards international people, we'll talk from an international standpoint. But the things I'm talking about will also apply to locals as well. So the biggest problems I think a lot of Chinese people have when it comes to dealing with illegal landlords is contracts, payments, bonds, as well as the condition of the house. And I've seen some really, really terrible conditioned houses. Like I've seen ones where the doors don't work, the windows are broken, there's like lots and lots and lots of mold. So in this video, I'm going to break it up into the minimum standards of living, the rules of the house, leasing versus subleasing, like illegal versus legal, how bond works and how it should work, protecting yourself, how to protect yourself, and finally, who do you go to when you're in trouble and when you need to take legal action or protect yourself, essentially. So let's start off with the first things. So this is the most common thing I've found that a lot of illegal landlords like to break, and that is the minimal standard of living. Not just illegal landlords, but also landlords, I find, can do this as well. So what are the minimal standards of living? So the minimal standards of living are a set of rules and a set of things you have to fix and you have to maintain before you can rent out the house. So if the house is damaged, you can't rent it out. And if you do decide to, if there are those problems when it is rented out, then you have to fix them straight away. And there's 3 types of damages, which we'll cover in another video. All right, so what is against the minimum standards of living? So if there's animals in the house, for example, if there's like the rats as well as the other sort of small, lots and lots and lots of small insects in the house that cannot be taken care of, then that breaches the minimum standard of living. If there is serious mold, like the mold, the black stuff on the wall, if there's so much of that, then that also breaches the minimum standard of living. Now, during the tenancy, so if you are renting the house and the mold is building up, then you as a tenant, your job is to help maintain that and help clean that up. You have to try and keep the house in good condition. But if it is there before you move in, then that is breaking the minimum standards of living. Bad smell, like if there's like animal poo or some other bad sort of smells in the house before you move in, that's a breach of the act. Lots of dirt, so if the carpets are dirty or the walls are dirty and there's lots of like disgusting stuff, then that's against the minimum standards of living and that's against the law. The carpet must be in good repair. So if the floor is damaged, that is also against the minimum standards of living. So they can't rent out the house. Or if it is damaged during the time that you're renting the house, then you have to let them know. And I'll teach you how to protect yourself very soon. Doors and windows must work. So if the doors don't work and the windows don't work, then that's definitely against the minimum standards of living. Next one is toilets must be flushable. So you should be able to flush the toilet. Pretty obvious, right? Taps must work. So the sink, you're able to turn them on and off. Yeah, pretty obvious. The stove must work. So for anyone who doesn't know what a stove is, it's got the oven and then you've got the 4 plates on top. So they must be working. So how it works, if there are, I think like 3 people living in the house, then 3 of those stoves must work. If there's any more than 3 people, then all 4 must work. Now I'll put the links in the description as well, so you can take a look at that. They all must be typically working. Next one is electricity and power points must be operational. So the electricity must work and the power points must work. Now, there is one situation where the power points do not have to work when you move in. And that's when you move in, but the landlord tells you that this PowerPoint's not working. If he tells you it's not working, then you've already accepted the fact that it's not working. And when you move in, if you want to fix that, typically you have to pay for it yourself. If the landlord said he's going to pay for it, then that's fine. It's usually sort of an agreement between 2 people. Next one is the heater must work in the living room. So in the living room, there must have a heater working. If the heater is not working, that is breaking the minimum standards of living, and that is very bad. Next one is the blinds and curtains must be working or must be there. So you should be able to close the curtains on the windows because of privacy reasons and stuff. So if the curtains are not working, the blinds are not working, that's a breach of minimum standard of living. Next one is there must be proper ventilation. So what is proper ventilation? So if you're in the toilet, for example, you're in the toilet or shower, there should be like a fan on the roof that works, or you're able to open a window. If those 2 things have proper ventilation, if that room has those 2 things for ventilation, then it's totally fine. Same as any other room. So every room, apart from like garages and storage rooms and hallways and stuff, they must have proper ventilation. So air must be able to go into them no matter what. Like I said, typically storage, like wardrobes, built-in wardrobes in garages don't really need ventilation, but any livable room should have it. All right, so let's talk about another thing that I've noticed a lot with especially Chinese rental houses and stuff, and that's the rules of the house. Now, you can find, I believe it's the Residential Act of 1998. And in this is a whole list of laws that you can learn to protect yourself. But the most common one that is broken is the rules part. So how does rules work in a rental house? So if you rent a house, let's just say I'm going to move in, right, to a house, or the best example is like girl shared houses actually. So let's just say you're a girl and you're going to rent a house with a bunch of other girls. And one of the rules is you cannot have boys in the house, right? That rule has to apply for everyone, including the landlord. If the landlord lives there, and is like in the house, then they have to follow their own rules. You can't have one rule for one person and rules for another person. They all have to have equal rights in the house. So you can't just like change the rules to make you happy. So let's just say your landlord or yourself want to change the rules because something bad happened. Maybe you feel unhappy. Maybe you just feel like there's another rule you need to add in. So how this would work is you typically have a house meeting. Everyone should be there and you should all discuss the rules and what rule you want to put in and the reason why you want to put in this rule. And they all typically have to agree with that. You can't have just one person force the rules. It has to be equal rights. And you can't, I guess, you just can't put your own rules in there. And you can't just make it so it's unfair. Okay, next thing is leasing versus subleasing. So what is the biggest difference between subleasing and leasing? So leasing is a formal contract with the property owner, or the real estate agent, which is also the property owner. This contract protects you by law. So everything in this contract, if something goes wrong, then you can go to the court and settle it in court, and there's a lot more evidence as well as like formal stuff that they can sort of help you with. Another good thing as well is if you have a dispute or you have any problems, you can also go to the tenants union. So the tenants union will protect you because you're a tenant, because you're a tenant versus the real estate agent property owner. Now, subleasing is not, a lot of people like to call it an illegal landlord. So typically renting a house with the landlord's permission is not really an illegal landlord. If they do it illegally without the property owner knowing, then you can consider that illegal, because you have to let the property owner know before you sublease. However, they're usually second-hand landlords, as commonly referred to as well. Now, subleasing does not protect you with a lot of these laws. Any contract you sign, anything is between you and the second-hand landlord, meaning that a lot of the laws, like the Residential Tenancy Act, as well as a few of the other rental laws, can't really protect you, just because of the nature of the contract, and it's kind of a grey area in the law. That's what I learned. But it's important to protect yourself. Now, how do you protect yourself? So let's just say you're moving into a house for the very, very first time. What's the first thing you should do? Take photos. Take lots and lots of photos of the condition of the house, especially if other people are living there. This is very, very, very important, because if you don't trust the landlord or the second-hand landlord, and you think that there will be problems in the future, or maybe you don't even think there's problems in the future, still take photos. And every week or every month, take photos of the house. This will help you a lot. I can't exaggerate enough how important that is. I'll do a second video where I talk about some of my my friends' problems they had with landlords. But for this video, I'll try and keep it more formal. Take lots of photos. Keep messages. Any conversation you have, it doesn't matter if it's in Chinese, English, any other language. Keep those messages, because that is all evidence. And if you ever go to courts, they'll have like the interpreters, they should do anyway, have interpreters that are able to understand that language and be able to help you out with that situation. Another thing too is keep invoices. Now, if you're doing an illegal landlord versus a legal sort of leasing thing, even if it's cash in hand, keep sort of the messages that you have where they talk about the rent prices, as well as if they give you receipts. If it's cash in hand, try and get a receipt from them no matter what. But if it is a proper sort of bank transfer, keep all those evidence. It's very, very important for your own protection. Next one is, it's pretty much the same. Keep, invoices can also cover, I forgot to mention, invoices can also cover like property damage, like for example, wear and tear. So I'll talk a little bit about wear and tear near the end of this video. But if anything gets damaged or you've repaired something or whatever, keep those receipts. Next thing is the rent payment proof. So if you, like what I just explained, if it's cash in hand, try and get a receipt or bank transfers, that sort of stuff. Next topic is, if you're in trouble, who do you go to? Like if you're having a terrible, terrible experience with your landlord, and you're moving out and they're trying to keep your bond. Now, this happens actually a lot. They try and withhold the bond, and there's only a couple of situations legally where they can potentially keep the bond. And that is if you are behind on your rental payments, if you've damaged something, or those are the two main ones I can think of. So like if you're moved out and you haven't paid your bond, they can withhold that bond legally, just to make sure that you pay for it. Because if you don't pay for your rent, then they can keep the bond as like a protection sort of thing. All right, next one is, who do you go for when you're in trouble? So there is a couple of things and a couple of problems, like I said. But the first one was they hold the bond. Another thing is too, after they move out, especially in Sandy Bay, this is the worst part about renting in Sandy Bay, I think, is a lot of the Chinese people, they don't really know much about bond and they don't know what to do, and they are afraid of the law, and the police won't typically help any sort of rental situations because it's very messy. What happens is they get cheated out of their money and they don't know where to go because they don't know the law. So you don't really typically go to the police. The police can't do a lot just because of how the law is. If you go to the police and you talk to them about that stuff, the police will either redirect you to the tenants union or to the magistrates court, typically. The tenants union, a lot of the Chinese people are in an illegal landlord and a second-hand landlord situation. The tenants union cannot help them typically in that situation. And I've been there when it's happened as well. But the reason why is because they're their own rules. Tenants union's job is to protect tenants, right? So an illegal landlord is also a tenant, right? So a tenant versus a tenant, they typically won't help you with. You go to the court, right? You go to the magistrates court. You threaten, like, you tell the landlord if you think it's unfair, you'll go to the courts and you'll resolve things there. And then they'll either, a lot of the illegal landlords, and I'll talk about this in another video in depth, but a lot of the landlords say, yeah, go to the police, we don't care, call the police, you can sue me, I don't care. Truth is they do care and they're scared, but they want to act confident like they know the laws. Okay, continuing on. So, you go to the courts, you tell them the problems, and I think you pay like a small court fee to just do the process, right? And then the court will send you a letter and also the legal or illegal landlord a letter saying that you've been summoned to court, and then you start the process. Once that letter's been sent to them, usually they, like we say, shit their pants. Like they get really, really scared and they start to cry or whatever. Depends on the landlord. The normal landlords won't, but like the illegal landlords who know they've been caught will, because like their visa will be in trouble typically. Then you'll go to court and then you'll resolve it either in court, and if you're right, then you should be right because you'll have all the evidence on your phone, you'll have the photos, you'll have all the repair damages or whatever they're trying to threaten you with. You'll have all that stuff and then you'll win the case. Typically, if you're in the right, I should say that because I don't know how the court system would work in individual situations. And yeah, and that's typically how you protect yourself. And I hope you've learned a lot. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you really, really learned something from this, and I hope you learned more about your rights. Learning rights is very important. And please subscribe and like the video and share this with your friends if they have any rental problems. And if you have any rental problems of your own, you can comment below, add me on Wechat. I'll put my Wechat QR code here. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next video.